Hello, my name's Clara. Clara Marin. And tonight, on the eve of my 30th birthday, I'm sitting in my studio apartment counting the ways I've disappointed myself. The rent notice is 3 days overdue. Another job rejection email sits unopened in my inbox. The birthday card from my parents arrived this morning. Generic drugstore paper, no money tucked inside, just their familiar signature and the words, "Hope your day is special." It won't be. I've been telling myself the same story for years. Bad timing, bad luck, doors that weren't meant for me. My parents perfected that phrase when I was young. "Oh, sweetheart, art school just isn't practical for our family." When I dreamed of studying in Paris. "Some doors aren't meant for you, Clara." When I wanted to start my own business, "You have to be realistic about your limitations." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. So I learned to be realistic. I learned to shrink. The rejection letters started making sense. The job interviews that went nowhere. The relationships that fizzled when men realized I couldn't afford to split expensive dinners. I carried disappointment like a well-fitted coat, tailored perfectly to my shoulders. Sophie calls as I'm staring at the stack of bills. My best friend since college, the only person who still believes I'm capable of more than managing a coffee shop and splitting rent with two roommates who never clean their dishes. "Tell me you're not wallowing," she says before I even say hello. "I'm not wallowing. I'm calculating." "Same thing with you." I can hear her moving around her apartment, probably organizing her closet or color-coding her bookshelf. Sophie has the kind of life that photographs well. Corner office, matching furniture, a boyfriend who sends flowers on random Tuesdays. Everything I was supposed to want, but somehow never figured out how to reach. "Another rejection today," I tell her. "The marketing position, they said I was overqualified but underexperienced." How does that even make sense? It doesn't. That's the point. Sophie pauses. "Clara, have you ever wondered if maybe the problem isn't you? What else would it be?" "I don't know. But normal people don't have your streak of bad luck. It's like the universe has it out for you specifically." I laugh, but it comes out hollow. "Maybe I'm just not meant for good things." "Don't." Her voice sharpens. "Don't do that thing where you make yourself smaller. You've been doing it since I met you." She's right, but knowing doesn't change anything. I grew up watching my parents scrape together enough for the mortgage, watching my mother's face tighten every time I asked for something. New clothes for school, a class trip to Washington, a birthday party with more than homemade cake. The answer was always the same. Money was tight, opportunities were limited, and some dreams were better left alone. "You know what I realized today?" I tell Sophie. "I never actually tried for anything I really wanted. I only went for safe things, practical things, things that wouldn't cost too much or ask too much. And even those doors stayed closed. So try for something crazy, something that scares you." "Like what? I'm 30 tomorrow, Sophie. I work at a coffee shop. I can barely afford groceries." "Like art. You still draw, right? In those little notebooks you think nobody notices?" She notices everything. It's why I love her and why she exhausts me. Drawing in margins isn't art. It's just fidgeting. "Show me." "What?" "The drawings. Next time we meet, show me." I almost say no, automatically, the way I've learned to deflect any attention toward the things I actually care about, but something stops me. Maybe it's the way Sophie says it, not like a favor, but like a fact. Like, of course I would show her, because of course, my drawings matter. I say, maybe. After we hang up, I sit in the dark for a long time. The city hums outside my window, full of people who figured out how to want things and get them. I wonder what that feels like. I wonder if I ever knew. The birthday card sits on my kitchen counter next to the bills. Inside, my parents' careful handwriting looks the same as it did when I was 10, 20, every year in between. No mention of celebrations, no invitation to dinner. Just the polite acknowledgement that another year has passed and I'm still here. Still disappointing nobody in particular. Tomorrow I'll be 30. I'll wake up in the same apartment with the same problems, carrying the same small life I've built from leftover pieces. But tonight, for just a moment, I let myself.
I remember what it felt like to want something big, to dream about doors that might open instead of ones that stayed shut. I don't know that everything is about to change. I don't know that a stranger is already driving through the rain toward my building, carrying a briefcase full of truths I was never supposed to learn. I don't know that some doors weren't closed by luck at all. The knock comes at 9:47 p.m., sharp and professional against my door. I almost don't answer. Nobody visits this late, especially not on a Tuesday night in the middle of a downpour. Through the peephole, I see a man in an expensive coat, water dripping from his umbrella onto my hallway's stained carpet. He looks like he belongs in boardrooms, not studio apartment buildings in Queens. Ms. Marin? His voice is precise, careful. My name is Thomas Gray. I'm an attorney. I need to speak with you about a matter concerning your family. I keep the chain lock engaged when I crack the door. I think you have the wrong person. Clara Marin, born March 15th, 1995, daughter of Evelyn and Daniel Marin. The specifics make my stomach drop. Lawyers don't show up at night with good news. Is someone dead? May I come in? This conversation is significant. He has the kind of face that inspires trust, lined with years, but honest, like a man who's delivered difficult news before and learned how to carry it gently. Still, I hesitate. Men in expensive coats don't belong in my world. Just for a few minutes, I say, sliding the chain free. He steps inside and immediately makes my apartment look smaller. Not because he's imposing, but because everything about him screams quality. The cut of his coat, the leather of his briefcase, the way he removes his umbrella without dripping water everywhere. He's polite about the space, doesn't glance around at my thrift store furniture or the stack of unpaid bills. Thank you. He settles into my only decent chair like he's done this before. I represent the estate of Richard Alcott. He passed away 6 months ago. The name means nothing to me. I shake my head. I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mistake. I don't know anyone named Richard Alcott. Thomas Gray opens his briefcase with practiced precision. Mr. Alcott was your grandfather, your mother's father. I almost laugh. My mother doesn't have a father. Both her parents died when she was young. She told me that my whole life. Miss Marin, your mother's father died in February. He left specific instructions that you were to be contacted on your 30th birthday. He pulls out a folder, thick with documents. I have copies of birth certificates, family records, correspondence. Richard Alcott was very much alive until this year. The room feels tilted. I grip the edge of my coffee table. That's impossible. My mother would have told me if I had a grandfather.
Would she? The question hangs between us, simple and devastating. Because as soon as he asks it, I realize I don't know the answer. I know almost nothing about my mother's family, actually. Every question I ever asked was met with vague answers and subject changes. The past is painful, Clara. Some things are better left buried. Thomas slides a photograph across my coffee table. Black and white, formal, like a corporate portrait. An older man with sharp features and intelligent eyes. Something about his face looks familiar, in a way that makes my chest tight. This is your grandfather, Thomas says quietly. Richard Alcott.
He built Alcott Industries from nothing: hotels, real estate, investment funds. When he died, he was worth approximately $2.8 billion. I stare at the photograph. The eyes, the shape of the jaw. It's like looking at my mother's face, aged and sharpened, made masculine. This doesn't make sense. We never had money. My parents struggled. I grew up thinking we were barely middle class. Your grandfather tried to maintain contact with you for years. He sent letters, gifts, birthday cards, all returned unopened or never acknowledged. Thomas reaches into his briefcase again and pulls out a manila envelope, thick and worn. These are copies of correspondence he wrote to you, letters he sent to your home address every year on your birthday, starting when you turned 18. My hands shake as I take the envelope. The return address is printed in elegant script: R. Alcott, Alcott Estate, Westchester County, New York. But what stops my breath is the handwriting on the front: Clara Marin, written in careful cursive across each envelope. My name, in a stranger's hand, with more care than my own parents ever showed. I never received any of these. We suspected as much. Your grandfather asked me to wait until your 30th birthday before making contact. He hoped that by then you might be old enough to make your own decisions about your family. I open the first letter with trembling fingers. The paper is heavy, expensive. The handwriting is the same as on the envelopes: careful, deliberate. My dear Clara, today you turn 18, and I am writing this knowing you may never read it. Your mother has made it clear that I am not welcome in your life, but I cannot let this day pass without trying to reach you. I think about you often. I wonder if you have your grandmother's laugh, if you inherited your mother's stubbornness, if you dream as big as I always hoped you would. I know nothing about the young woman you've become, and that absence aches more than I can express. If this letter ever finds you, please know that you have a grandfather who loves you, who has always wanted to know you, and who wishes he could give you the world. Happy birthday, my dear girl. With all my love, Richard Alcott. The words blur as I read. I flip to the next letter, then the next. 18 years of birthday wishes, Christmas greetings, updates about his life that read like one side of a conversation with someone who never answered back. In every letter, the same thread: I hope you're happy. I hope you know you're loved. I hope someday we can meet. She kept these from me. It's not a question. Thomas nods. It appears so. All of them. Every single one. I look up at him, and for the first time in years, I feel something sharper than disappointment. I feel angry. Do you know what I thought my whole life? I thought I was unlucky. I thought doors stayed closed because I wasn't good enough to walk through them. Your grandfather wanted very much to open doors for you. In fact, he did. Thomas pulls out another set of documents. This is why I'm here, Miss Marin. Richard Alcott left you something in his will, something significant. The papers swim in front of my eyes. Legal language, numbers with too many zeros, terms I don't understand. But one phrase jumps out, clear and impossible: controlling interest in Alcott Industries. This can't be real. It's very real. Your grandfather left you the majority of his estate. You're now one of the wealthiest women in the country, Miss Marin. I set the papers down because my hands won't stop shaking. Why? Why would he leave everything to someone he'd never met? Because you were never a stranger to him. You were stolen from him. Thomas's voice gentles. And because he believed that wealth should go to someone who understands what it means to have nothing. The rain pounds harder against my windows. In the space of an hour, my entire life has been rewritten. Not by luck or fate or doors that weren't meant for me. By lies. By a mother who decided I didn't deserve to know where I came from or who loved me. What happens now? I ask. Now you decide what to do with the truth. Thomas Gray's office sits 40 stories above Manhattan, all glass and polished steel that makes my thrift store dress feel like costume jewelry. I spent the night staring at my grandfather's letters, reading the same words over and over until they felt real. This morning, I called in sick to the coffee shop and took the train into the city, carrying the manila envelope like evidence of a crime. "Are you certain you're ready for this?" Thomas asks as his assistant brings coffee in delicate china cups. "Everything here," whispers Money. The leather chairs, the oil paintings, the way the silence feels expensive. I nod, though I'm not ready for anything. I haven't slept. I haven't called my parents. I haven't even told Sophie. Because saying it out loud would make it true, and I'm not sure I believe it's true yet. Thomas opens a leather portfolio and pulls out documents that look official enough to change the world. Before we begin with the formal will reading, I think it's important you understand the scope of your grandfather's estate. He slides a summary across the mahogany table. Numbers swim in front of my eyes. Alcott Industries, hotels in 12 countries, commercial real estate portfolios, investment funds, a private foundation, assets totaling nearly $3 billion. I don't understand business. I don't know anything about any of this. Your grandfather was aware of that. He's arranged for transition support, consultants, a board of directors who will help guide you. But Clara, Thomas leans forward. The decisions are yours. He left you controlling interest. What that means is that you have the final say. About what? About everything.
The words hang in the air like smoke. Yesterday, I couldn't afford to fix my car. Today, someone is telling me I control a business empire. Thomas continues, his voice steady and professional. Your grandfather was very specific about when you were to be contacted. Not at 18, not at 25, but at 30. He believed that by 30, you would have experienced enough of life to understand the value of both wealth and its absence. Why didn't he fight for me when I was little? He tried for years. Thomas opens another file. Court documents, custody petitions, attempts to establish visitation rights. Your mother blocked every effort. She had legal grounds. Your father supported her decisions, and family courts tend to favor parental rights over grandparents' wishes. I stare at the documents. Legal language that translates to, I tried to love you, but they wouldn't let me. There's more, Thomas says gently. Letters that your grandmother wrote before she died. She kept journals about wanting to know you. He hands me a small leather-bound book, worn soft with age. I open to a random page and read. I dreamed about Clara again last night. In my dream, she was 7 years old, helping me bake cookies in the kitchen. She had flour in her hair and frosting on her fingers, and when she laughed, it sounded like music. When I woke, I realized I don't know what her laugh actually sounds like. I don't know if she likes chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal raisin. I don't know if she's tall for her age or if she still believes in fairy tales. Richard tries to hide his heartbreak, but I see it in the way he stares at the photographs we have of her. School pictures Evelyn's mother secretly sent us before she passed away. 3 photographs of our granddaughter, and they're years old now. Sometimes I wonder if she knows we exist. Sometimes I hope she doesn't, because maybe that would hurt less than knowing we exist but can't reach her. The page blurs as I read. I flip through more entries, years of a grandmother wondering about a granddaughter she'd never met. She wrote about setting aside Christmas presents, about learning to knit so she can make me sweaters, about dying without ever hearing my voice. She loved you, Thomas says quietly. They both did. but they're both gone now. It comes out flat, matter of fact. So what's the point? The point, Thomas says, is that love doesn't die with the people who feel it. Your grandfather wanted you to know that your life could have been different, that someone wanted to give you the world. He slides the formal will across the table. Pages of legal language that boil down to something simple. Everything I have is yours. There are conditions, not restrictions, but requests. Your grandfather hoped you would consider continuing the family foundation. It funds scholarships for first-generation college students. He hoped you would remember that wealth is a responsibility, not just a privilege. I think about the rejection letters, the doors that stayed closed, the dreams I learned to keep small. What if I'm not good enough for this? What if I mess it all up? Then you'll figure it out. That's what your grandfather did. He started with nothing and built an empire. But Clara, Thomas's voice grows serious, the money isn't the real inheritance. The real inheritance is the choice. What choice? The choice to live your life differently than your parents lived theirs. Your mother chose silence, secrecy, control. Your grandfather chose transparency, even when it was painful. Now, you get to choose. I stare at the documents spread across the table, a lifetime of wealth and opportunity waiting for my signature. But underneath the papers, I can still see those letters, those journal entries, the ghost of grandparents who loved me from a distance. I need to see them, my parents. I need to ask them why. Thomas nods. I expected you would. Will you come with me? If you want me to. I take a shaky breath. I think I'm going to need someone on my side. Thomas closes the portfolio and looks at me with something that might be pride. Clara, you've been on your own side your entire life. You just didn't know it yet. Outside the office windows, the city spreads out like a promise. Somewhere down there, in a house I haven't visited in months, my parents are living with 30 years of lies. Tomorrow, I'll confront them with the truth they tried to bury. Tonight, I'll go home to my tiny apartment and try to figure out who I am now that everything I believed about myself has changed.
The girl who thought she was unlucky died in this office. The woman walking out is someone else entirely. I don't call ahead. I don't give them time to prepare their lies or coordinate their story. I drive straight from Thomas Gray's office to the house I grew up in, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, the manila envelope of letters burning like evidence on the passenger seat. The house looks smaller than I remember, but everything about my childhood feels different now. The modest colonial, with its careful landscaping and drawn curtains. Was this poverty, or was this choice? Were my parents really struggling, or were they just committed to the performance of struggle? My mother answers the door in her usual armor, pressed slacks, pearl earrings, the kind of careful makeup that says she's always ready for unexpected company. But her face shifts when she sees me, something flickering behind her eyes that looks almost like fear. Clara, what a surprise. We weren't expecting. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. We need to talk. I push past her into the living room where my father sits with his evening newspaper, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looks up with the mild confusion of a man whose routine has been disrupted. Sweetheart, he starts, folding the paper. Is everything all right? I pull the letters from the envelope and let them scatter across their coffee table like accusations. Birthday cards, Christmas wishes, years of correspondence from a grandfather I never knew existed. The paper whispers against the glass surface, and my mother's face goes completely white. Tell me about Richard Alcott. The silence that follows is deafening. My father's mouth opens and closes like he's forgotten how to form words. My mother stands perfectly still, but I can see her hands trembling. Where did you get those? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. From his lawyer, the lawyer who came to tell me that my grandfather, the grandfather you told me was dead, left me his entire estate. I pick up one of the letters, the one from my 18th birthday. Did you know he wrote to me every year? Did you know he loved me? Clara, you don't understand. Then explain it to me. The words come out louder than I intended, sharp enough to cut. Explain how you told me my whole life that both your parents were dead when my grandfather was alive until 6 months ago. Explain how you kept his letters from me. My mother straightens, and I see the shift happen, from caught to defensive, from vulnerable to cold. It's a transformation I've seen before, whenever I asked too many questions or pushed too hard for answers she didn't want to give. Your grandfather was a manipulative, controlling man who tried to run my life and destroy my marriage, she says, her voice gaining strength. I protected you from him. Protected me? From what? From love? From opportunity? From knowing who I really am? From his poison. She moves to the mantel where family photos sit in their careful arrangement. Not one picture includes any grandparents. Richard Alcott was a cold, ruthless man who built his fortune by stepping on anyone who got in his way. When I married your father, he cut me off completely because Daniel wasn't good enough for his precious family name. That's not what his letters say. His letters were manipulation, Clara. Can't you see that? He was trying to turn you against us, trying to buy your love with promises of money and inheritance. I look at my father, who's been silent through this exchange, his face gray and strained. Dad, is that true? He takes off his reading glasses and cleans them with shaking hands. It's complicated, sweetheart. No, it's not complicated. It's simple. Did my grandfather try to contact me or not? The silence stretches until it snaps. Yes, my father says quietly. He tried to contact you. Many times. My mother whirls on him. Daniel! She deserves the truth, Evelyn. She's 30 years old. The truth? The truth is that your precious grandfather tried to take you away from us when you were 5. He filed custody papers, Clara. He wanted to remove you from our home because he thought we weren't providing adequately for you. The words hit like a physical blow. What?
He hired investigators to document our finances, our home, our parenting. He was building a case to prove we were unfit parents so he could raise you himself. I sink into the chair across from them, my legs suddenly unsteady. Is that true? My father nods miserably. He dropped the case when we agreed to let him see you, supervised visits. But your mother... He looks at his wife, and something passes between them that I don't understand. Your mother couldn't forgive that. She couldn't forgive him for trying to take you. So you made sure he never could? My mother's composure finally cracks. I made sure you had a normal childhood. I made sure you weren't raised by a man who thought money could solve everything, who thought he owned people because he could buy them. Yes, I kept his letters. Yes, I kept him away from you, and I'd do it again. The room falls silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, a bitter irony I can't ignore. Everything I thought I knew about my life is crumbling, and I don't know which version of the truth to believe. What about the opportunities? I ask quietly. The doors that never opened, the jobs I couldn't get, the schools I couldn't afford. Was that his fault too? My parents exchange another look, and I see the answer in their faces before they speak. You were capable of so much more than we could give you. We knew that. But we also knew that if you succeeded too much, too fast, he might try to claim credit. He might try to come back into your life. So you held me back. We kept you safe, my mother insists. I stand up, gathering the letters from the coffee table with hands that have stopped shaking. The anger is clean now, pure and focused. You kept me small. You kept me believing I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve better because you were afraid of a man who just wanted to love me. Clara, please. No. I walk toward the door, then turn back to face them one last time. He's dead now. You won. But I'm not going to stay small just because you're afraid of his ghost. My mother follows me to the door, her perfect composure finally breaking completely. If you take his money, you'll become just like him. You'll think you're better than everyone else. You'll think money gives you the right to control people's lives. I pause with my hand on the doorknob. Maybe, or maybe I'll use it to become everything you were too afraid to let me be. I leave them standing in their doorway, in their house full of carefully curated lies, and drive back to the city with 30 years of silence finally broken. The truth isn't clean or simple or fair. My grandfather wasn't a saint, and my parents weren't monsters. But they made a choice to hide me, to limit me, to keep me from knowing who I could have been. Now it's my turn to choose. The Alcott estate sits on 40 acres in Westchester County, hidden behind iron gates and century-old oak trees that seem to guard secrets as old as the family name. Thomas drives me through grounds that look like something from a period film: manicured lawns, stone paths, a fountain that probably costs more than most people's houses. Your grandfather bought this property in 1987, Thomas explains as we wind up the circular drive. He said he wanted a place where family could gather, where children could run and play without worrying about traffic or strangers. The irony cuts deep. He built a house for family gatherings, but his own granddaughter never set foot on the property while he was alive. The mansion itself is beautiful in a way that makes my chest tight. Red brick and white columns, tall windows that catch the afternoon light like eyes. It's the kind of house I used to drive past as a child, wondering what it would be like to live somewhere that looked like a fairy tale. "It's too much," I whisper as we pull up to the front steps. It was for him, too, toward the end. 40 rooms for one lonely old man. He told me once that he kept your grandmother's garden exactly as she left it because he hoped someday you might want to see what she grew. A housekeeper named Mrs. Chen greets us at the door, her face kind but cautious. "Ms. Marin, we've been expecting you. Mr. Alcott spoke of you often." She leads us through rooms that feel like museums: Persian rugs, oil paintings, furniture that probably has its own insurance policies. But it's not cold, exactly. There's something lived in about the spaces, as if love once moved through these rooms and left traces behind. "Your grandfather's study," Mrs. Chen says, opening heavy wooden doors. The study takes my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk overlooking the gardens, and covering one entire wall, photographs, hundreds of them, arranged like a family tree made of faces. I move closer and realize what I'm looking at. Pictures of me, spanning 30 years. School photos, graduation pictures, even some candid shots that look like they were taken from a distance. Me at my high school graduation. Me working at the coffee shop. Me walking down a street I don't remember walking down. How did he get these? Thomas joins me at the wall. He hired private investigators. Not to interfere in your life, but to document it. He wanted to know you were okay, that you were happy. This was the closest he could get to watching you grow up. There's a photo of me at 25, laughing with Sophie outside a restaurant. I remember that day, my birthday dinner, one of the few times I'd let myself celebrate. Looking at it now, framed and mounted like precious art, I feel something crack open in my chest. He loved me, I say, and it's not a question anymore. More than anything. Mrs. Chen shows us through more rooms, each one revealing new pieces of a life I was never allowed to share. My grandmother's sitting room, preserved exactly as she left it, with half-finished knitting projects and books marked with delicate ribbons. A music room with a grand piano and sheet music spread across the bench. A library that smells like leather and old paper and secrets. "There's something else," Thomas says as we reach the second floor. "Your grandmother's private study. She left something for you." The room is smaller than the others, more intimate. Watercolor paintings line the walls, gardens and flowers painted with the careful attention of someone who loved growing things. On the desk sits a leather journal tied with a faded blue ribbon. I open it carefully, and my grandmother's handwriting spills across the pages like pressed flowers. If Clara is reading this, then she has finally come home. I am writing this on her 10th birthday, though I know she doesn't know it's her birthday or that I am thinking of her. I have been saving stories for her. Stories about her grandfather's childhood, about how we met, about the garden I planted the year she was born. I thought perhaps someday she might want to know where she comes from, what kind of soil grew the family tree she belongs to. I planted roses the year she was born, pink ones, because Evelyn always loved pink as a little girl. They bloom every June, and I pretend Clara can see them from wherever she is. I pretend she knows that someone is growing something beautiful in her honor. There are gifts, too, in the closet, wrapped and waiting. A birthday present for every year I missed, a Christmas present for every holiday we couldn't share. Richard thinks I'm being foolish, saving gifts for a child who might never come. But hope isn't foolish. Hope is the only thing that makes sense when love has nowhere else to go. I look up from the journal, tears making everything blur. The gifts? Mrs. Chen opens the closet door and my breath catches. Shelves lined with wrapped packages, each one labeled with my name and a date. 30 years of birthdays and Christmases waiting patiently for someone to unwrap them. Your grandmother wrapped the last one 2 days before she died, Thomas says quietly. Your 28th birthday. She made Mrs. Chen promise to keep adding to the collection if you ever came home. I reach for the nearest package, Clara's 16th birthday, written in careful script. Inside is a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm shaped like a paintbrush. She knew I wanted to be an artist. She guessed. She said creative children always found ways to make art even when no one was watching. The weight of 30 years of love hits me all at once. This house, these rooms, these carefully preserved pieces of a life I was meant to share. It's all too much and not enough, and exactly what I never knew I was missing. I need air, I say, moving toward the windows. Outside, I can see the gardens my grandmother wrote about. Even in winter, they're beautiful, structured and wild at the same time, like someone who understood that the best things grow when you give them boundaries and freedom in equal measure. The board wants to meet you tomorrow, Thomas says behind me. The executives, some distant cousins, people who've been running things since your grandfather got sick. They're curious about you. Curious? Suspicious might be more accurate. You're an unknown quantity who suddenly controls their world. Some of them think you'll sell everything and disappear. Others think you're not equipped to handle the responsibility. I turn back to the room full of unopened presents, the journal full of love letters to a granddaughter who was kept away. What do you think?
Thomas considers this carefully. I think your grandfather was a very smart man who spent 30 years learning who you are from a distance. I think he wouldn't have left you everything if he didn't believe you could handle it. But what if I can't? Then you'll learn. That's what he did. That's what everyone does. As we leave the estate, I carry my grandmother's journal and one small present, the paintbrush bracelet that somehow knew who I was before I knew myself. Tomorrow, I'll face a room full of people who think I don't belong in my grandfather's world. Tonight, I'll go home to my tiny apartment and try to figure out who I am when I'm not the girl whose parents kept her small. The truth is, I don't know yet, but for the first time in my life, I'm excited to find out. The Alcott Industries building stands 60 stories above Midtown Manhattan, all glass and steel and the kind of authority that makes you straighten your shoulders just walking past it. This morning, I own it. This morning, I belong here whether I feel like it or not. Thomas meets me in the lobby, looking like he slept as little as I did. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to throw up, I say honestly, or run away, or both. That's normal. Your grandfather threw up before his first board meeting, too.
Really? No, but it sounds like something he would have done. We ride the elevator to the 58th floor in silence, watching the city shrink below us. When the doors open, we step into a world that smells like money and leather and decisions that change people's lives. The boardroom is everything I expected. Long mahogany table, floor-to-ceiling windows, and chairs that probably cost more than my car. Around the table sit 15 people in expensive suits, their faces ranging from politely curious to openly skeptical. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas announces, "Clara Marin." The introductions blur together. Executive Vice President this, Chief Financial Officer that, distant cousin something or other who's been with the company for 20 years. I shake hands and nod and try to look like I belong, but I can feel their assessment with every glance. At the head of the table sits a man who introduces himself as James Alcott, my grandfather's nephew. He has the same sharp features as the family portraits, but where my grandfather's eyes held warmth, James are calculating. "Clara," he says, not rising from his chair, "we've heard so much about you." "Funny, I have heard nothing about any of you." A few people shift uncomfortably. James's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Yes, well, your grandfather was always secretive about family matters. Shall we begin?" For the next hour, they walk me through numbers that make my head spin. Quarterly earnings, investment portfolios, acquisition opportunities. They speak in acronyms and percentages, throwing around figures that represent more money than I can conceptualize. "Of course," he says, sliding a document across the table, "given your background, we've prepared a transition plan that would allow the current management team to continue operations while you learn the business." I scan the document. It's full of legal language, but the message is clear. Sign this and you'll be a figurehead while we run everything. "How kind of you to think of my limitations," I say, not touching the paper. "It's not about limitations," says a woman named Patricia, her voice honey-sweet and sharp as a knife. "It's about reality. This company employs 12,000 people. Their livelihoods depend on stable leadership. And you don't think I can provide that?" "Can you?" James leans forward. "Tell us, Clara, what's your experience with mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, international markets?" "None," I say clearly. "I have no experience with any of those things." Satisfied murmurs ripple around the table. James spreads his hands as if to say, "See?" "But," I continue, "I have 30 years of experience with something none of you understand." "Which is?" "I know what it feels like to have nothing. I know what it's like to work 2 jobs and still worry about rent. I know what it's like to want something so badly it hurts and to be told that wanting it is foolish." I turn back to face them. My grandfather built this company from nothing. He understood that business isn't just about numbers on spreadsheets. It's about people. It's about understanding what people need, what they want, what they're willing to work for. "Very touching," James says, "but sentiment doesn't run a corporation." Doesn't it? I pull out my phone and scroll to an article I found this morning. Alcott Industries stock has been flat for 3 years. Your hotel chain is losing market share to competitors who focus on experience over efficiency. Your investment fund underperformed the market by 12% last year. The room goes quiet. I have their attention now. "You've been running this company like it belongs to you," I continue. "Like the point is to maintain what exists rather than grow what's possible. But this company doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. And I'm not interested in maintaining anything." James's face flushes red. "You can't just walk in here and—" "I can walk in here and do whatever I want. That's what controlling interest means." I sit back down, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. "Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to spend the next 6 months learning everything you know about running this business. I'm going to ask questions, lots of them, probably stupid ones, and you're going to answer them because that's what you're paid to do." "And if we refuse," Patricia asks coldly, "then you can clean out your offices today." The silence that follows is deafening.
Around the cable, I can see the calculations happening behind their eyes. How much they need their jobs, how much they're willing to risk, and how seriously they should take the coffee shop girl who just inherited an empire. Thomas clears his throat. Perhaps we should discuss the transition timeline. There is no transition, I say. I'm not transitioning into anything. I'm learning to do a job that's already mine. James pushes back from the table. This is ridiculous. Richard would never have wanted. My grandfather, I interrupt, wanted his granddaughter to inherit his company. Not his nephew, not his management team. Me. If that makes you uncomfortable, there's the door. One by one, they agree to work with me. Some graciously, others through gritted teeth. James is the last to acquiesce, his agreement coming out like pulling teeth. After they file out, Thomas and I sit alone in the boardroom. That was, he starts, terrifying? He was going to say impressive. I laugh and it comes out shaky. I have no idea what I'm doing, Thomas. Neither did your grandfather when he started. The difference is you're not starting from nothing. You're starting from something he spent 60 years building. I look out at the city again, at all the people down there living their lives, making their choices, trying to figure out what comes next. What if I ruin it? What if you don't? For the first time since this all began, I let myself imagine that possibility. Not just surviving this inheritance, but thriving with it. Not just learning to run a company, but transforming it into something better. The girl who walked into this room an hour ago wouldn't have stood up to them, Thomas observes. No, I agree. She would have signed their paper and let them pat her on the head. What changed? I think about my grandfather's letters, my grandmother's gifts, 30 years of being told I wasn't enough. I got tired of being underestimated. As we leave the building, I catch my reflection in the lobby's polished marble. The woman looking back at me has my face, but there's something different about her eyes. Something that looks almost like power. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Tonight, I'm going to call Sophie and tell her everything, because the truth is too big to carry alone, and I'm done trying to make myself small enough for other people's comfort. I have a company to run, a legacy to honor, and 30 years of silence to make up for. Time to get started. The headline breaks at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. The hidden heiress, billionaire's secret granddaughter inherits empire. By noon, my phone won't stop ringing. By evening, there are reporters camped outside my apartment building like vultures waiting for roadkill.
Sophie brings coffee and croissants to my hideout in Thomas's office, where I've been avoiding the media circus all day. "You're trending on Twitter," she says, showing me her phone. "Someone leaked a photo of you from the board meeting." The image shows me mid-gesture, explaining something to the executives. I look confident, authoritative, nothing like the woman I see in the mirror. "How are you handling this?" Sophie asks. "I'm not." I gesture at the stack of interview requests on Thomas's desk. CNN, Forbes, 60 different podcasts, someone from Netflix who wants to option my life story. It's insane. "Maybe that's not entirely bad. You could control the narrative." Thomas looks up from his laptop. "She's right. The story is out there whether you participate or not. You might as well make sure it's accurate." I read through some of the early coverage. Most of it is sympathetic. Poor girl discovers she's rich, family secrets revealed, heartwarming reunion with grandfather's legacy. But there are darker undertones too. Questions about whether I'm equipped to handle the responsibility. Speculation about family drama and ugly custody battles. "There's one interview request that's different," Thomas says, sliding a letter across his desk. "Victoria Chen from 60 Minutes. She's known for in-depth pieces that focus on the human story, not just the scandal." That evening, I meet Victoria at a quiet restaurant in Brooklyn, far from the Manhattan spotlight. She's younger than I expected, with sharp eyes and a gentle manner that makes me understand why people trust her with their secrets. "I'm not interested in making you look foolish," she says, over wine that cost more than I used to spend on groceries. "But I am interested in the truth. All of it." So I tell her. About growing up thinking I was unlucky, about dreams deferred and doors that stayed closed, about the night Thomas Gray knocked on my door and handed me a different life.
Your parents, she says carefully. How do you feel about them now? I consider this. Betrayed? Angry? But also, I understand why they were afraid. My grandfather was powerful, and power can be dangerous. They thought they were protecting me. Do you forgive them? I don't know yet. Forgiveness feels like something I might grow into, not something I can decide right now. Victoria nods. What about the money? How do you process inheriting billions when you've lived paycheck to paycheck? It's surreal. Yesterday I was worrying about rent. Today I own hotels in 12 countries. The number doesn't feel real, but the responsibility does. What kind of responsibility? My grandfather employed thousands of people. He supported charities, funded scholarships, built things that mattered. Now that's mine to protect and grow. That feels heavier than any amount of money. The interview airs 2 weeks later. Victoria kept her promise. The piece is honest but kind, focusing on the human cost of family secrets rather than the spectacle of sudden wealth. The response is overwhelmingly positive. Messages pour in from people who understand family estrangement, who have felt invisible in their own lives, who see something hopeful in my story. But not everyone is pleased. My mother calls the morning after it airs, her voice tight with controlled fury. You made us look like monsters, she says. I told the truth. Your version of the truth. You didn't mention that your grandfather tried to have you taken away from us. You didn't explain why we had to protect you. I mentioned that you were afraid. I said I understood why you made the choices you made. Understanding isn't forgiveness, Clara. No, I agree. It's not. The line goes quiet. Are you going to cut us out the way he cut me out? The question catches me off guard. I don't know. We love you, she says. And for the first time in his conversation, her voice cracks. We always loved you. Everything we did was because we loved you. I know, I say softly. But love doesn't excuse everything, Mom. And it doesn't erase the consequences. After we hang up, I sit in my new office, 40 floors above the street where I used to worry about bus fare, and think about cycles. My grandfather cut my mother out, my mother cut him out. Both of them thought they were protecting something precious. I don't want to be part of that pattern, but I don't know how to break it either. The media attention eventually dies down to a manageable level. I hire a PR firm to handle the requests I don't want to take and filter the opportunities that might actually matter. Slowly, I start to understand that visibility is part of the job now. People want to know what the hidden heiress will do with her grandfather's empire. The truth is, I'm still figuring that out. But for the first time in my life, I have the resources to figure it out properly. And that feels like the beginning of something powerful. I find the last letter on a Thursday evening, 3 months after that first knock on my door. I'm working late in my grandfather's study, trying to understand quarterly projections, when I notice a book that's slightly out of place on the shelf behind his desk. When I pull it free, an envelope falls to the floor. For Clara, on her 30th birthday, to be opened when she's ready to choose her own path. My hands shake as I break the seal. The paper is different from his other letters, heavier, more formal. This one feels final. My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, then Thomas has found you, and you have learned the truth about your family. I hope the knowledge has not been too painful, though I suspect it has been. Truth often hurts before it heals. By now, you have seen the business, met the board, perhaps even begun to imagine yourself in my world. You may be wondering what I want from you, what I expect you to do with the legacy I've left behind. The answer is simple. I want you to choose. I built Alcott Industries to prove something to a world that told me I was nothing. I came from poverty, Clara, real poverty that makes your modest upbringing look comfortable. I clawed my way up through cunning and ruthlessness and a willingness to do whatever it took to win. For many years, I thought that was strength. Your grandmother taught me otherwise. She showed me that real strength isn't taking what you want. It's choosing what matters. She would have loved you so much, my dear girl.
You have her eyes, her gentleness, her way of seeing beauty in small things. I made many mistakes with your mother. I tried to control her life because I thought I knew better, because I confused providing for her with possessing her. When she chose your father, I saw it as rebellion rather than love. When she cut me out of your life, I saw it as cruelty rather than protection. The truth is, we were both afraid. She was afraid I would try to take you from her. I was afraid she would tell you against me. Fear makes us do terrible things to the people we love most. But you, Clara, you have a chance to choose differently. I have left you more money than you can spend in a lifetime, more power than most people ever dream of wielding. You could use it to buy anything you want, control anyone you choose, build monuments to your own ego. Many people in your position do exactly that. Or you could remember what it felt like to have nothing. You could use this inheritance not to separate yourself from the world, but to bridge the gap between those who have everything and those who have nothing at all. Your grandmother wanted to build a school for children who couldn't afford art supplies. She believed that creativity was a basic human need, like food or shelter. She died before she could make it happen, but the plans are in her desk drawer, along with enough money set aside to fund it for decades. I wanted to expand our scholarship program, to find young people like I once was, and give them chances they couldn't create for themselves. The infrastructure is already in place. It just needs someone who understands what it means to have doors closed in your face. These are not obligations, Clara. They are possibilities. You could sell everything tomorrow and live quietly somewhere beautiful, and I would understand. You owe me nothing. You owe the world nothing. But if you choose to stay, if you choose to build something with what I've left you, remember this. The point is not to become me. The point is to become yourself, but with the resources to make your dreams as big as you dare to imagine them. I love you, my granddaughter. I have loved you every day of your life, even when I couldn't tell you so. Whatever you choose it with joy. All my love, Richard Alcott. P.S. There is one more thing in the safe behind the Monet. The combination is your birthday, 03-15-95. Inside, you will find the engagement ring I gave your grandmother. She always said it should go to a granddaughter who understood that love isn't about possession, but about setting each other free. I sit in the gathering darkness, holding his words and feeling the weight of choice settle around me like a cloak. Outside the window, the gardens are silver with moonlight. Somewhere in the house, Mrs. Chen is preparing dinner I probably won't eat. Somewhere in the city, my parents are living with the consequences of their own choices. And here I am, 30 years old, and holding the key to more possibilities than I ever imagined.
I think about the girl I was 6 months ago, counting bills in a studio apartment, believing she wasn't meant for good things. I think about the woman I'm becoming, learning to speak in boardrooms, making decisions that affect thousands of lives. My grandfather's letter doesn't demand anything from me. It just asks me to choose consciously, to decide who I want to be now that I have the power to be anyone. For the first time since this all began, I know exactly what I want to do. The ballroom at the Alcott estate has been transformed for tonight's announcement. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over 200 guests, journalists, board members, charity leaders, and politicians who suddenly find my friendship valuable now that my name comes with 9 zeros. I stand at the podium in a black dress that costs more than I used to make in 6 months, looking out at faces that watch me with curiosity, skepticism, and calculation. Sophie sits in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. Thomas stands near the back, ready to handle whatever chaos might follow my words. My parents didn't come. I invited them, but my mother's response was polite and cold. "We think it's best if we don't attend. Good luck with your announcement." Maybe that's for the best. Tonight isn't about the past. It's about choosing the future. 6 months ago, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. I was a different person, living a different life. I worked at a coffee shop, worried about rent, and believed that some people were just lucky while others weren't. I thought I was one of the unlucky ones. A few chuckles ripple through the audience. They know the story by now. The hidden heiress, the family secrets, the dramatic inheritance. It's become almost mythical in the retelling. I've spent these months learning about my grandfather's business, trying to understand the scope of what he built. Alcott Industries employs 12,000 people. Our hotels house millions of travelers each year. Our investment funds support hundreds of companies. It's an empire built on ambition, vision, and yes, ruthlessness when necessary. I pause, scanning the faces in front of me. James Alcott sits with his arms crossed, clearly expecting me to announce some naive charity venture before quietly stepping aside. The board members look politely attentive, probably hoping I'll confirm their low expectations. My grandfather left me a letter asking me to choose my own path. He didn't want me to become him. He wanted me to become myself, but with the resources to dream bigger than I ever thought possible. I take a breath, thinking of the engagement ring that now on my finger, my grandmother's ring, which my grandfather kept safe for 30 years, hoping someday I might wear it. So here's what I've chosen. I'm not stepping down from Alcott Industries. I'm not selling the company or turning it over to a management team. I'm transforming it. The room shifts, sudden attention focusing like a spotlight. Effective immediately, 50% of Alcott Industries' annual profits will fund the Alcott Foundation, a new organization dedicated to bridging the gap between those who have everything and those who have nothing. Murmurs break out across the ballroom. I see James lean forward, his face flushing red. The foundation will have 3 primary initiatives. First, the Eleanor Alcott School for Creative Arts, a tuition-free program providing art education, supplies, and mentorship to children from low-income families. My grandmother believed that creativity was a basic human need, and it's time to honor that belief. Applause begins tentatively, then builds. I spot a journalist frantically taking notes. Second, the Richard Alcott Scholarship Program will be expanded to provide full university funding for first-generation college students, along with career mentorship and business incubation support. We'll find young people who remind us that talent exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. More applause, stronger now. I see Thomas smiling broadly. Third, the Second Chances Initiative will provide housing, job training, and business loans to people rebuilding their lives after family estrangement, abuse, or trauma. Because I've learned that sometimes the most important door that opens is the one that leads you away from people who want to keep you small. The room erupts in applause. People are standing, some wiping their eyes. Even some of the board members looked moved, though James still sits stone-faced. This isn't charity, I continue, as the applause dies down. This is investment. We're investing in the idea that everyone deserves the chance to discover what they're capable of when somebody believes in them. I look directly at James, at the board members who thought I'd be easy to control, at the journalists who've been waiting to see if the hidden heiress would prove worthy of her inheritance. My grandfather built this company to prove that someone from nothing could become everything. Now I'm using it to prove that everyone deserves that chance.
The standing ovation lasts for 3 minutes. Afterward, as guests mingle over champagne and past hors d'oeuvres, I'm surrounded by people wanting to shake my hand, volunteer their services, pledge their support. James approaches as the crowd thins. His face is carefully neutral, but I can see the calculation behind his eyes. 50% of profits is unsustainable, he says quietly. The board will never approve it. The board doesn't get to approve it. I have controlling interest, remember? You'll bankrupt us within 5 years. Or I'll prove that doing good and doing well aren't mutually exclusive. I smile at him. Scared of a little challenge, James? He walks away without answering, but I see him pull out his phone, probably calling an emergency board meeting. Later, as Mrs. Chen and the catering staff clean up, I walk through the gardens my grandmother planted.
The roses are blooming. Pink ones, just like she wrote about in her journal. In the moonlight, they look like small promises kept. Sophie finds me there, carrying 2 glasses of champagne from the after party. "So," she says, settling beside me on the stone bench, "how does it feel to be a philanthropic revolutionary?" Terrifying. Exhilarating. Like I might throw up or change the world, or both. Your grandfather would be proud. I hope so. But more than that, I hope I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be all along. We sit in comfortable silence, 2 friends who've learned that sometimes the best doors are the ones you have to build yourself. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Tonight, I'm exactly where I belong. 1 year later, I wake up to the sound of waves against rocks outside my cottage window. The house isn't grand like the Alcott estate. Just 3 rooms perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, with a studio where I paint watercolors of the changing sky. I kept my grandmother's engagement ring, but I left the mansion to become a school, exactly as she would have wanted. The Alcott Foundation has been operational for 8 months now. Yesterday, I got a letter from Maria, one of our first scholarship recipients, who's studying engineering at MIT. She sent a photo of herself in a lab coat, grinning beside some complicated machine she helped design. "Thank you for believing in doors I didn't know existed," she wrote. That's what I do now. I find doors and help people walk through them. The cottage feels like the first home I've ever chosen rather than settled for. Sophie visits monthly, usually bringing stories about the foundation's latest successes and Thomas's increasingly creative excuses to check in on me. "He worries you're getting too isolated," she told me last time. I told him, "You're not isolated, you're just finally comfortable being alone with yourself." She's right. For 30 years, I carried the weight of other people's fears and limitations. Out here, I've learned what my own dreams actually weigh. This afternoon, there's a knock at my door. I open it to find a young woman, maybe 22, with nervous eyes and a backpack that looks like it holds everything she owns. "Miss Marin, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Emma Chen, Mrs. Chen's niece. She gave me your address. I read about your foundation online, about second chances for people estranged from family." Her voice wavers. I make tea while she tells me her story. Parents who wanted to arrange her marriage, her refusal, the cutting off, the doors slammed shut, the careful erasure from family photos and plans. It's a different story than mine, but the shape of the silence is the same. "I don't know what I want to do yet," she says. "I just know I can't go back to being invisible." "You don't have to know what you want to do," I tell her. "You just have to know that you deserve to want something." She stays for dinner, and we talk about dreams deferred and the courage it takes to choose yourself over other people's comfort. When she leaves, she has the address of our housing program in the city and my personal phone number. "What if I'm not brave enough?" she asks at the door. Bravery isn't feeling fearless. It's being terrified and choosing yourself anyway. After she goes, I sit on my porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of hope. Tomorrow, I'll call Thomas about expanding the Second Chances initiative. Tonight, I'll write in my journal. This practice of preserving thoughts for the granddaughter I might never meet, or the woman I'm still becoming.
The girl who counted bills and believed in bad luck would be amazed by the woman writing this. Not because of the money or the foundation or the headlines, but because you finally know that you were always enough. You just needed the right people to see it. The inheritance wasn't the billions. It was learning that love doesn't have to be earned or deserved. Sometimes it's just there, patient and persistent, waiting for you to believe you're worth receiving it. I close the journal and look out at the ocean, vast and endless and full of possibilities I'm still discovering. Tomorrow, another door will open. Tomorrow, someone will choose themselves over silence. Tonight, I'm exactly who I was always meant to be.